Hi again, this is Dylan from Teach English Spain, and this is another episode in the Teach English Spain podcast, which is the podcast for people who are teaching English as a foreign language in this wonderful country called Spain. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about some tips that I think will help you pass your TEFL course. So this is for you if you are thinking of taking a TEFL course, or maybe you've enrolled on one and you're a bit worried, a bit anxious about how it's going to go because you've heard that it can be like a TEFL boot camp. It can be really, really stressful. Well, if you listen to these 10 tips and if you follow them, I think you will make your life much easier on the course itself. And just to remind you, if you are thinking of taking a TEFL course, then we have a Trinity Cert TESOL course in Granada, and you can find out more information by going to teachenglishspain.com. So, first tip. If it's a good TEFL course, then you will have been asked to complete some pre-course tasks. Take them seriously. That's my first piece of advice. Make sure you complete them. And don't leave them for the night before you take the course. Get them done early. Okay? Give yourself lots of time to complete them for that information to sink in. And of course, just before you start the course, review the tasks. Because if they've been well designed, they will prepare you for the course and you'll be able to hit the ground running when you finally start the course. And so you won't suffer overwhelm in the first week. Now, the second tip is to brush up on your language awareness. Now, when I did my course, I had no idea about grammar. I had an English language degree or an English literature degree, but I didn't really know much about language terminology. Now, at the interview, you will hopefully have been recommended to buy certain books as part of the pre-course reading list. So buy them or borrow them or download them. Well, I don't recommend that, obviously, if it's done illegally. But do that and work on your language awareness. You could buy a grammar book for English language learners. That could be a really useful resource for you because that will explain the grammar in quite a simple way that you'll be able to understand. An intermediate level grammar book would be fine actually for you. Alternatively, see if you can get access to a course book and look at the back of the course book and you'll have some nice language explanations there. So brush up on your language awareness, find out about grammar, about vocab and lexis, do some work on phonology and things like the phonemic chart, and just familiarise yourself with the terms and the concepts related to teaching English as a foreign language. A good sort of overall resource book, a short guide to TEFL, will give you a lot of information about that. Now, related to that, do lots of online resource checking, because if you spend a few hours looking for TEFL related material online from reputable sources such as Teaching English from the British Council, you'll start to familiarise yourself with a lot of the terms, the concepts, the approaches, the methodology, everything like that. If you can, try to watch videos of English classes online, read some TEFL blogs, and just start getting accustomed to what people write and produce online. You don't want to waste too much time during the course Googling all of this stuff. So if you can actually familiarise yourself before you start the course, you can just focus on preparing your classes, giving good classes, and doing the assignments when you're actually doing the course, because you don't want to waste all your time on the internet. You won't have time to do that. Ask your trainers for recommendation. If you are still get in contact with your course provider and say, look, if they haven't given you a list of useful resources, ask them. See what they recommend. Now, when you're doing your course, you've got to make sure you review your notes on a daily basis. So in these input sessions, you learn about different aspects of English language teaching, and they come at you thick and fast throughout the course. You'll be learning new things every day, so make sure you review your notes at the end of each day or early in the morning before you start. You could record yourself talking about what you've learned, make MP3s or do mind maps or little slideshow videos or whatever it is. find some way of creating that material, or looking at the material that you've learned in the workshops, in the input sessions, and modifying it so it makes sense to you. Okay, it's really important that you acquire the basics, and a really good way to do that is to just make really good notes. Another idea is to team up with a study buddy. So you're on a course with lots of other trainee teachers, and you are assessed on your ability to work with colleagues. So arrange study sessions with the other trainees on the course, test each other, work with each other. Often the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. So for example, if you are preparing a lesson, ask one of your other colleagues on the course if they can help you, and they can just pretend they're a student for a few minutes, and you can run through the lesson with them. It will give you a real insight into what may work and what may not work during the lesson. Now, another thing you should do if you really want to do well on the TEFL course is to really pay attention in the classes you observe. Ask your trainers for some specific training observation tasks if you like. You'll learn so much in these observed lessons, as your teachers will demonstrate techniques and activities which you can then use in your own classes. And observe each other, observe the other trainee teachers, and use these classes as an opportunity to learn and to really reflect upon what goes on inside a classroom. Not only from the teacher's point of view, but watch your learners, see what they do. Okay? Try to become like a detective and think about what they're doing and why they're doing certain things in the class. And another thing is, where you have the feedback session on your classes and your colleagues' classes, really make sure you contribute. Ask questions, give your opinions. It's a great learning experience, actually giving feedback on other people's classes. Now, when you take the course, your trainers or your tutors will give you feedback on your lessons. Don't take it personally. They're there to help you. They want you to pass the course. They want you to become the best teacher you can in a short time. We don't really like, generally, being observed, and we don't really like being given constructive criticism, but it's there to help you. Even if you feel deflated by the feedback, ask your trainers for practical advice on how to improve next time. And also, don't compare your performance with the other people on the course. What's really important is that you pass the course, not how you do in relation to the other teachers on the course. Because let's face it, if you complete the course, your teaching will be very different in 6 months' time. So although at the time the course seems all important and you get really drawn into what's happening on the course, you've got to think about the long term. And you've got to think, well, when I pass this course, okay, I'm kind of ready to go into a classroom. But your teaching will improve so much in the first 6 months, in the first year, that you'll develop naturally by doing it later on. Planning is really important, and you need to really improve your planning skills throughout the course. And many trainee teachers spend so long planning that they don't have time to rehearse the lesson. So they're finishing their plan 2 minutes before they have to deliver the lesson. Make sure you work out how to write the plan in the format you're expected to use. Okay? If you're not sure, ask for help from your trainers. But you need to make sure that you can write the lesson plan as quickly and as concisely as you can. Okay? Now, the other thing with your planning is that you may be asked to create a lesson plan for your tutor, for your observer, for your trainer. This may not be that effective when it comes to actually teaching the lesson. So you might need to actually create a working plan. And this could be, well, you decide how your working plan can be created. It can be as simple as possible with bullet points. A little tip is to use coloured paper and stick it up on the wall, on the board, wherever, so you can access it easily. In a lesson, you have lots of pieces of paper. If they're all pieces of white paper, you're going to struggle to find your plan, your working plan. So, make it visible. And the easiest way to do that is to write it on a sheet of coloured paper. Stick it on the wall, stick it on the board, stick it on the table, so your eye is drawn naturally to it when you're actually teaching. Another tip is that when you're planning your lessons and you have to teach, let's say, for example, a piece of grammar, you can go on the internet But the internet can be your greatest enemy, because you may end up just spending 6 hours surfing the internet, finding far too much information, some of it which may not be relevant to the class you're teaching. And that's a waste of time. So it's often much better if you have to teach, for example, a grammar structure at intermediate level, go to an intermediate level course book, photocopy the grammar explanation there, and use that to work from. Okay? Or ask your trainers which resource books they recommend. You don't want to get overwhelmed by the amount of information on the internet. Reference books, course books, usually provide the same information in a very concise way. You can learn so much from working with those examples. Because what you need to do on the course is to keep your language explanations as simple and as practical as possible. You don't need to give a 1 hour lecture on a particular grammar point. You need to really be sure about the basics, the fundamentals, and which aspects of these grammar points you want to teach. If not, you'll just go off on a tangent and your lesson won't be concise and won't be easily understood by your learners. And the final thing I think you need to do if you want to pass your TEFL course is to make sure you understand the criteria for each unit. Read the documents your course provider provides you with and ask any questions. Make sure you do what needs to be done. Okay. A lot of people waste time because they haven't really read the instructions, the task instructions. So you just need to do what you need to do on the course. You need to meet those requirements. Now, you may not think certain tasks are particularly useful, but you will need to complete them to pass your TEFL course. And if you have any complaints or suggestions, I would suggest wait until the end of the course or until the external moderation, and then you can bring up any of these criticisms or any of these complaints or any of these doubts you have about the validity of what you're expected to do on the course. When you sign up for the course, you've got to know what you need to do in order to pass the course. So familiarize yourself with the requirements as early as possible so you know exactly what to focus on. Okay, so I hope those 10 tips will help you pass your TEFL course with flying colours. Just to remind you, if you are interested in taking a Trinity Cert TESOL course, we have one in Granada. Just go to teachenglishspain.com and you can find out about it. Okay, so I hope to speak to you soon.